Okay, we are officially recording. Yep, the red dot is going. So, just so everybody, when they see it, my name's Elliot, and I'm here chatting with Teresa, who is the owner of Power Bar Fitness, several different studios over in Dallas. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
How many do you have?
We have three at the moment. Um, Looking to just open something a little bit bigger and kind of closing a couple of them. So we're adjusting. But right now we have three in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Arlington, Fort Worth, and then Dallas County.
Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting. And I'm also, and I'm probably going to ask after that in a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
interested in what brought you to wanting to close it. But first, a little background on you. So you obviously, if you own a pole dance studio, you're slightly familiar with poles and pole dancing.
Mhm.
How'd you get into that?
A student, just I saw it being advertised. I thought it was interesting. I wanted to know. I'm that type of person. I'm like, I bet I could do that. So I wanted, it
Well,
was a challenge. And I grabbed a friend, took her with me. I fell in love. She didn't. And the rest was history.
yeah. Well, that's very straightforward. I know what you mean. The moment I
Yeah.
see something, I'm like, I want to be one of those people. It just straight line plow through everything in my way. So
Yes.
yeah, so you have three studios over in the Dallas Fort Worth area.
Yes.
What led the transition from, hey, you're a student and you like pole dancing to, you know what, I think I'm going to own not one but three different studios?
It didn't come overnight. It was gradual. Actually, I knew when I started taking classes, the entrepreneur in me said, I would rather teach and make money and still do something that I know I'm good at, and I want to do. So that's changed my hat from a student to a teacher and an instructor. And then from there, I was like, I want to own my own studio simply because I always wanted to own my own business. I just didn't know which avenue I wanted to go down. And then it was like loving pole and wanting to be an entrepreneur just married one another.
So you weren't an
Um,
entrepreneur before this?
yeah, I even being young, I was on an interview earlier, and that question was asked how I got started, and I just from 10, 9, 10, 11 years old, I was looking up books like how do you start a business, but it took me all the way. So
It had to
just kind of,
percolate enough.
you
So
had to
you
find what you're passionate about.
that makes sense. That makes sense. It took me a good 26, 27 years before somebody even made mention that I could own my own business. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden everything just kind of clicked into place. And I was like, oh, well, why have one when I can have seven? Because, I don't need free time.
Right. Exactly. That's how it works. Get
So
addicted.
go on. Sorry.
No, no, no. I was just saying you get addicted to the process of starting running a business.
Right. Yeah, I tend to be consider myself a very lazy person, except when it comes
Mhm.
to my business. Then I'm just like,
Mhm.
no, I'm so lazy, and people are like, but you pulled a 16-hour day. You're just like, yeah, lazily at a very frenetic pace.
Yeah.
So what did you find to be the one of the hardest things about making that transition from student instructor to business owner? Because businesses are kind of like building bike sheds.
Yeah.
Everybody has an opinion.
Yeah. Well, honestly, the transition from student to instructor was harder than instructor to business owner. I had applied twice to become a pole dance instructor, and I did not get it either time. And that was
Mm.
probably over like a year period. And then the third opportunity came open because there was a new studio being built. And so that's how I got my foot in the door. But I became the manager of that studio. So it was kind of because I have managerial skills. So it was a little bit of an easier transition making that purchase. And plus, that studio that I bought, she mentored me for a year. So that was very helpful.
Oh, really? So you've had somebody kind of sitting, you know, sitting on your shoulder, giving you advice as time goes on.
Yeah, well, I'm a fast learner, not to toot my own horn, but I am. I'm very inquisitive. So I didn't use that mentorship for the full year. I was able just to like ask questions here or there, and I found my wings. So
Okay. Yeah, once you figure out your own style, especially with managerial experience, I know that a lot of people think being a manager is telling people what to do,
right.
and it's really not. The best managers are the ones who are like, "Yep, go out, make your own mistakes.
Mhm.
So long as the place isn't burning down, then we're good, and it can be fixed. And next time you won't do it." So.
Right, exactly.
So, about how many students in aggregate would you say that you had before? Or, I mean, I don't want you to give out like exact numbers because I know that could
Mhm,
be a weird question. So, like, how
mhm.
has the number of students that are attending your studios? How has that changed with the coronavirus or COVID-19 coming out?
Well, obviously we went to full classes being on waiting lists to a government mandate saying you're not an essential business, you can't open. So that definitely changed it and leveled it out to zero across all lines of what we do, from in-person fitness classes to private lessons to pole parties. It just stopped um, due to the contagiousness of the virus and not being contained.
Right. Okay. So, and how did you, I mean, anybody who's an entrepreneur, my grandfather said that a businessman is usually 1 foot into the next door as the first one's closing. So, I bet it didn't take you very long to uh, make a decision and figure out a nice way to shift or transition into something else, something you're doing. What
Yeah,
did that
so
transition look like?
it was just seeing looking at what other countries were doing and the mandates, and paying attention and just erring on the side of caution. Immediately I said, let's do virtual immediately, and started working on that. And I was already working on online classes, but being lackadaisy with that because I was kind of dragging my feet because everything was perfect. And boom, all of a sudden in 1 week's time, you went from thriving to, starting a new business, because it's pretty much a new leg of the business.
Right. Yeah. I have several, like I said, many irons in the fire, and I own a couple of online courses as well. From a digital marketing standpoint, before the interview, I mentioned that Amazon's no longer shipping third-party items out, which ground a lot of people's businesses to a halt. Likewise, with a lot of clients, I've seen traffic and conversions just kind of plummet straight on down,
Mhm.
except in three different industries, and that's education, entertainment, and people wanting to figure out business. Business is
Mhm.
actually up. If you have a way of saying, "Hey, this is how to do a business," people are going to start listening to you. If you
Mhm.
have, we have one client that sells GRE prep tests, and overnight his traffic jumped up an extra 30%. And those are just
Wow.
test booklets. Yeah.
Wow.
Digital products are big because people are sitting at home, bored, want to learn, and they
Mhm.
want to figure out some way to make money. So,
That's awesome.
this online course, is it already out? Are you still working on it?
Nope. It's alive. So I'm doing webinars, as well as um, part of one of the legs of the business is to teach other people that might already have a pole at home how to become a pole dance instructor, so that when this is all said and done, they can go out and sell their services as an independent pole fitness instructor. So that's more in the making, because it's giving people time to, study and to practice and to develop a skill set. So And then I'm also working on helping people become studio owners. Pole dancing is not going away. It's just
Oh
not.
no. No,
Mm-mm.
no, no. I've seen the numbers. It's certainly not. And I recently had the privilege of joining IPDFA as
Mhm.
the president of America. So we're doing much the same thing of expanding because, like you said, polls becoming only more legitimate.
Mhm.
Searches are going up. Interests are going up. I remember one day I was talking to my mom about it, and she expressed interest in trying out some pole studios. And she was a gymnast when she was young.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, it's a great platform, not just obviously for the physical component, but also from the mental and the relationship component, that adults get to really form communities. So,
so your webinars are multiple people all at once, so it's almost like
class.
yeah, okay. So it's a
Mhm.
like a class. What if they don't have a poll at home? How do you accommodate them?
So not all of our classes are with polls. I have some classes from, we have a signature line of non-poll classes, and that's like, we call it power buns, which is more twerk fitness. We have a bar none chair class, and then we have a floor and core, which is sensual floor work, but we have a high level of fitness in all of those courses. So we just literally take your normal push-ups and sit-ups and chair dips and all of that, and we put curves on it and just make it pretty sensual.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, a lot of exercise regimens that I've seen are all about the conditioning, but they don't necessarily add in that extra, like you said, sensualness to it. They don't add in that extra agility that they're going to need when they're coming back. They're just trying to make.
Right.
So that's quite smart. I hadn't thought about that. Interesting. So, what are you doing for besides community outreach? I know you have these online courses. How are you getting the word out with this webinar? How are you focusing on just maintaining right now? Are you still looking to expand? I think you
Well,
mentioned that you're
yeah.
going to be switching over from Pole Studios, multiple to a singular, and
Mhm.
so you still have things moving forward. So,
Oh
what?
yeah. We're always moving. The corporate part is going to hunker down and just become a solid corp, meaning we'll have two solid locations. But the rest, the opportunity has been sent to women that or men that would like to open up a pole studio, want the guidance, want the mentorship, want the formula, want to partner with our brand, they will be able to open up their own. So, although the corporation is retracting, we're doing so in a way that we can become more concentrated, so that we can expand others. So, we're not expanding ourselves, we're working now and transitioning to expanding others, helping them get studios off the ground, helping them with marketing on behalf of our brand, helping them with the education, helping them with the business entrepreneurial skills. So that's what we're doing from that perspective.
So when it comes to opening a new studio, I'm just as inquisitive as you. So you're saying, hey, so I'm going to teach people how to open up studios. I'm curious. Are there any details you want to share, or just an overview of what goes into it? Because it's more than have Pole will show up and talk to people.
Yes. So I mean, really it's just you obviously have to come with something. It can't just be like, well, I think this might be a good idea. This is going to be a serious investment, It's going to be work. It's going to be a serious investment for people. It's going to occupy a large percentage of your life. You know, it's
Hmm.
one of those things, if you're not going to work it, it's not going to work. So, obviously we're vetting people to make sure they're serious. We're vetting people to make sure they're the right pair, and the right presentation of who we are, that they align with our morals, with our values, with our mission statement.
Hmm.
So that's something that people should know. But if somebody wants to get involved with our company from, just an individual basis and say, hey, just teach me the basic ways to teach pole, and I just want to be independent.
Mm,
That opportunities there. If they say, hey, I really want to open up a brick and mortar and have my location where I can decorate the walls and color the floors or whatever, there's opportunity there.
okay. It's interesting with event planning. A lot of people immediately jump towards thinking about decorations and
Yes,
aesthetic, and it's
yes.
on a scale. Yeah, it's actually number 8 on a list of 8 things that they need to end up looking at. Uh,
And that's where we come in at, because that's where we're like, I've got 26 components of a program if somebody wants to own a studio that I'm teaching on.
mhm.
And it's getting their priorities right.
And it's so okay, so 26. So you walk through things like accounting and how, like, even in small businesses, I find that one of the missteps a lot of them make is they don't have proper accounting. They don't think about expenses, or they do something like buy a pack of cigarettes using a business credit card and thus pierce the veil down low. So I'm glad that you're taking a look at things like that and really dialing into the business aspect.
Mhm.
And poll happens to be the medium that you get to push forward with it. Usually,
Yes,
people start
definitely.
the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, they look at the decor, they look at things from a customer standpoint, not necessarily wrong, but the infrastructure has to be right.
Right. Yeah. There's a difference
Mhm.
between everybody sees, in my case, a juggler, and they say, "Hey, that's really cool. I want to learn. I want to learn how to juggle, but I don't have the hand-eye coordination." You don't realize that you develop the hand-eye coordination by learning to juggle, and
Mhm.
it's much the same thing. People see pole dance studio owners and says, "This looks like an easy job," and they
Yeah.
don't realize the sheer amount of time investment in any project.
Exactly.
So, how can the rest of the pole community help support you or their studios? What do you have any advice for people at large for both yourself, things you're doing, things other people should be taking forward from this?
Um, I would say, as far as helping, I would just say, just sharing each other, you know, um, being a positive community, being a friendly community would be great, for sure. Just merging on, continuing to push the initiative that pole is truly a form of fitness. It's a form of bringing mental health and happiness to people. It's a form of rehabilitating women that have low self-esteem. I think that's the portion that I play in when it comes to the pole community. And that's my contribution to the pole community, is the education, is the empowerment piece, is what pole actually it does. I mean, it does more than just build a muscle and stretch out a tendon. It really helps people overcome limiting beliefs in themselves,
Mm.
tragedies and tragic thoughts about how they view themselves. Like, I mean, it really, really helps bring a newness to someone and their own self-esteem and validation. So that's my contribution to the pole community, and I would just challenge them to keep that initiative going.
There's actually a large amount of science that backs up what you say. A personal anecdote: there was a gentleman. His name's Paul, but nobody knew that. He just showed up at a party and he had a shirt that said "Sexy Beast" on it. Nobody knew what his name was, so everybody just started referring to him as Sexy Beast, and it just stuck. And after a year, it had completely changed how he acted, how he viewed himself. He was far more
Mm-hmm.
confident in who he was and what he was doing. You see that with martial arts as well, and especially with pole. It really helps a lot of people feel confident, feel strong, feel
Mm-hmm.
capable of doing things, and feel beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been very interesting watching those kind of transformations happen from non-students to students when they end up changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think too, another hidden gem in what we offer with our pole classes is the community, which is something our brand is huge on. It's very hard to make friends as adults.
Yeah.
People tend to be, they're either settled in a family, or they're settled with, I made all the friends I'll ever make in life, or they're still stuck with high school friends. So it can be very lonely, you know, as adults, especially in the Dallas area. They move to Dallas, they move to Fort Worth because their job brings them here. And then they go out on Meetup and they meet weird people, you know. So we're just
Right.
providing a platform where women aren't going to be harassed or women aren't going to be, you know, bamboozled, and they can meet actual women that are working on themselves and working on growth and care about self development.
Right. Yeah, studies show that we are tribal creatures. We want our tribe, and usually there's a core, whether that's building a family or a community, or
Hmm.
just a shared interest. A lot of times, rather gregarious, but when I go up and start talking to people, people are very slow to commit, slow to converse, and you need to have that continued exposure that ends up happening, which again I've seen happen with Pole Studios. Something you said earlier about how you were just going to ask the community to be friendly. Do you not think that that's the case currently?
I think it's hit or miss. I think overall, I think, yeah. But I do think that there are times where the pole community can be cliquish or can be some place that you can't trust. Being in the industry, I've been burned a few times. I've been um, had people steal ideas or try to, you know, just do things that are just undercutting and undermining the initiative, or take things on that we've developed with our blood, sweat, and tears and call it their own. And I mean, I think that is a little discouraging, and I think that if people just understood that they got into pole for understood the reasons why they got into pole and stopped trying to bite off of somebody else,
Hmm.
and this is just all transparency, I think that they would find success to be much more organic for them. Um, and I think that's probably been my biggest frustration is, you know, there are some in the pole industry you can trust, but then there are some in the pole industry you're like, what do you want from me? Like, I mean,
Right.
and I think that is something that you know, you try to mask because we try as a pole community in whole, say how positive it is and how community driven we are. But there are still clans and cliques and stuff like that.
That makes sense. I actually got into business for myself because I was burned and I set everything up, and then somebody says, "Oh, it's actually mine," and
Yeah.
ran away with it. And it happens. It happens.
Mhm.
And that's also why Destiny, Priscilla, and Priscilla is no longer a part of it, but why we started PolePedia, because there was all this information and resources out there, and it was all behind a paywall. So there were
Yeah.
people that were hurting themselves, and just because somebody else is trying to make a quick buck showing videos that they could find over on YouTube. The focus wasn't on safety; it was on focus on give me $50 and
Yeah.
here's 35-second clip videos of how to do a sit up. And
Yeah.
that's not really helpful. That's not very good, and it's
Yeah.
certainly not going to. I understand the desire to make some money, but they have to understand that it also would cause the entire group to stymie. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, as my another business partner of mine says, he had a house cleaner steal some jewelry from him, and so he fired her, and he was
Mhm.
confused because she would have made more money if she had just shown up and continued to clean than she would have in that one small moment of grabbing the jewelry.
Yep.
So it's the long term play of just building, which you seem to really dial in and focus in on
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad, but I think that's just the nature of humans. You know, they want something but don't want to work for it. So it's just that shortcut of, oh, I'll just go ahead and copy. And I actually have some videos that I've put out from the entrepreneur side of myself regarding, you know, copying and things like that. Like, there's a difference between not reinventing the wheel and straight up copycatting from somebody else. So,
Yep. Especially in the
mhm.
digital marketing space, there was a
Yeah.
training course. We made it. Somebody downloaded the course and started making the exact same wording, same script, same course and tried to market it. And
Wow.
it happens, especially with digital marketers. I don't like calling myself a digital marketer, but you see it. There are people who are interested in the technicalities and actually delivering good service, and people who are basically hustlers.
Yeah.
And the really successful ones are the ones that do a moderate amount of both. Being a
Mhm.
hustler isn't bad. Being able to grind on things isn't bad, but being able to sniff it out, somebody who just says digital marketing, you'll make millions of dollars,
Mhm.
versus actually dialing it in, like you're saying, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to have a cash infusion. This is how you're going to jump into marketing. It's going to take a while. It's not you snap your fingers, you have a pole studio, and it's
Mhm.
successful.
But I think, I know we have to move along, but I think just backing off of that is when things like what's going on now, the coronavirus, COVID-19, when those things happen, if you were in any kind of business, whether a pole studio, digital marketing, whatever, in any kind of business that you didn't actually legitimately work for, that you didn't really know, you just were copycatting, cutting and pasting, this is where your skirt gets pulled up. This is where people see that you didn't know what you were talking about because you don't know your business well enough to pivot, and you don't know what you could do with your craft because you were just busy just copying and pasting someone else's efforts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very apt way of putting it. I don't. I could have said the same thing using about 5 to 10 different minutes, and there you are blasting it out in like 30 seconds. Hey guys, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
I could take a lesson in brevity from you. So no, you're right, and I see that a lot. There are a lot of people who go out and can just sell something, and they don't like it's all hot air and snake oil that they're talking about. And you're
Mhm.
right. Around times like now, with PolePedia, I take a look at other people and how they're ranking when it comes to pole related terms, and PolePedia has actually jumped up because it's we pay. It's a labor of love. We do it out of our own pocket. We haven't really tried to monetize it at
Mhm.
all. And other people who have been trying to monetize it, it's showing more and more when they're just giving really banal advice that doesn't even make
Mhm.
sense. When there's a
Mhm.
government mandate saying, "Hey, close your studio," saying how proper etiquette with COVID-19 within the walls of a studio make a lot less sense. And you can tell when
Mhm.
it's just they're just pushing the ball forward and waiting to see, versus
Mhm.
okay, there's a very real issue, which is actually why I'm happy talking to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's so much responsibility we as dance studio owners have at this moment. And I think, even though we can't physically be with our clients and we physically may not be legally to be, able to be with our clients, there's still an obligation that we have to people. And that's why I said, if you really don't know your industry and you really don't know your clients, what are you going to talk about? How are you guys going to connect? Besides just going through the transactional motion of teaching a class. So I
Mhm.
think that's very important. Like I said, that really will separate the quality of studios or businesses, um, it, you know, versus the clients will be able to see that. They'll be able to see, like, were you really just in it for the money? Because right now everybody is scrambling, from Boeing airline to the cruise ships industries to small
Yep,
businesses like ourselves. Everyone's scrambling. So those that were in it for the money are just taking off looking at the money. So
that's right.
it'll show itself.
It is.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think that this is a natural good place to wind down. Do you have any final words that you want to say?
No, other than, I just encourage people to use this forced time of pause, um, to really decide, like, hey, where's the opportunity in it? If someone's watching and they are a student, hey, continue to work on your craft. Even if you don't have a pole at home, get plugged into virtual online classes, because
Hmm.
that development and conditioning is going to help you be that much more successful once pole classes resume.
Hmm.
If you're a dancer, by trade, maybe you're a hip hop dancer or a Zumba instructor or something like that, and you're looking to get into another trade line, obviously that's important at this point. I think everyone has gotten that lesson that we should all have several streams of abilities and incomes and skill sets. This is the time where they can actually learn, and if someone has lost their job and said, I'm not going back to corporate because I don't want this to ever happen to me, get with me, plug in. I'm working very hard to make sure those that want to step in the realm of entrepreneurship
Hmm.
on the dance fitness side, I'm there to support you.
That's a very big thing. Entrepreneurs always there's this mentality outside of small businesses, people
Mhm.
who don't own it, that they think that business is dog eat dog, and they don't realize how much leaning on each other everybody actually does. It's mutually assured success versus destruction, as I say. All right, it looks like the video has frozen, so I'm going to. Oh, there you are. Now you're moving again.
Yeah,
Hello.
okay.
All right. Well, perfect. Well, again, thank you for your time with this interview. I'm going to post this into the different groups, and I'm interested in chatting with you further.
Thank
And
you.
perhaps we can chat
Thank you.
again and make another video like this another time, hopefully
Yes,
with better circumstances.
absolutely. And I just want to take this time to thank you for having me on this call and interviewing me and giving me a voice, especially throughout this pandemic, and more empowerment to you and your company. So I appreciate it.